Hey, I'm Aubrey from Aubrey Originals. If you're looking for a fun, custom gift idea for Mother's Day, you are in luck. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make the cutest handprint tote bags for all the moms and grandmas in your life. A huge thank you to Cricut for sponsoring this video. Of course, all thoughts and opinions are my own. I have always loved creating handmade gifts and custom projects for holidays, but having a Cricut machine opened up so many more creative possibilities. I could never go back. If you like this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. For creating handprints, you will need white paper, paint, a darker color is best for good contrast, and a foam brush. For the tote bags, you will need Cricut tote bag blanks. I'm using both the large and medium size. Infusible ink and iron-on vinyl. I'm using both, but you can also just use one or the other. A Cricut machine. I'm using my Explore 3. Any Explore or Maker machine will be best for full-size designs up to 11.5 inches wide, but the Joy Extra would also work for designs up to 8.25 inches wide. A standard grip cutting mat and a fine point blade. A Cricut Easy Press. I actually found that the 9x9 size worked best, and I also used my Easy Press Mini. A large pressing mat and a smaller one to put inside your tote bag. Butcher paper, which comes in your box of infusible ink. White cardstock and heat-resistant tape. And a few more things you'll want are a brayer tool, scissors, a weeding tool, lint roller, a ruler, and a Cricut Bright Pad, which is optional, but I love mine. To make handprints, use a foam brush to apply paint to your child's hands. Okay.
Yeah, it does tickles.
And press firmly on white paper. Lift the hands straight up, doing your best not to smudge the handprint. But even if you do smudge it a little, we can fix that later. Once you're done painting, take a picture of each of the handprints. I recommend separate images for each handprint you're doing. And I prefer using Design Space on my desktop computer, so that's what I'll be demonstrating. But the process of uploading a handprint to Design Space will be very similar for a phone or tablet. Probably even a little easier since you can take your picture with the same device that you're using Design Space on. If you're using a computer, send your pictures to it however works for you. AirDrop or email them to yourself and download them. Next, open the Design Space app and go to the canvas. Click on Upload in the left toolbar. Click Upload Image. Then you can click Browse to find your pictures or drag or drop the file into Design Space. You'll just do one image at a time. Select Image Type. Choose Complex. On the next screen, you'll be given several options to remove the background. First, if you want to crop your image closer to the handprint outline, you can click on the crop icon and highlight around your image. This just takes out a large chunk of the background, making the next part easier. Go back to the background remover. I like to start with the automatic remove background. Sometimes that's all you need depending on your image. From the manual options, you can choose Select and click on the background areas you want removed. If needed, you can also fine-tune things with the eraser. You can adjust the size of the eraser and zoom in on your image. If you mess up anything while doing this, you can always click the Undo button or Redo button at the top. If your handprint outline is super detailed, you can also clean up the edges and remove some details that you don't need. You're not going to want your machine to try to cut all those tiny pieces. When you feel like you're all the way done, click Preview Cut Image at the top to make sure everything looks good. At this point, you may notice some small areas inside the handprint that you don't want cut, so you can use the Restore button to add back to the image and fill those in. Erase any small dots in the background or around your handprint that you might have missed. Make sure everything's good, then click Apply and Continue. Choose Cut Image. Then you can name your image and give it a description. This is just for you so you can find the image easier later. Then click Upload. Now you can click on your image and add it to the canvas. You can resize it so it's the size of your child's actual handprint. I just measure from palm to middle fingertip, and that's usually the height, so you can input that number in the top toolbar. And now you can design the rest of your tote bag. I like to start by creating a guide that's the same size as my tote bag. I recommend actually measuring the physical tote bag. These are the measurements I used for my guides. Once you create that shape, you can change the operation type to guide, then move it to the back of all the layers, and now you've got a visual for how big to make your design. There are tons of mom-themed images in the image library, or you can create your own with text. I think this "nothing in this bag belongs to me" image is so perfect for moms since one of our main responsibilities, at least in our children's eyes, is to tote around the snacks and toys. I didn't love these little shapes here, so in this case, it was just a matter of hiding those layers. I did the same thing with this image. I wanted it to say grams instead of mama, so I hid that layer and added the custom text. If your image isn't separated into layers like this, you can usually contour the image to hide parts you don't want. If needed, you can also contour the handprints. For example, when I zoomed in on these, I noticed a tiny piece that I missed when uploading the handprint that I didn't want cut. Click on the image, click contour, then click on that piece and it will fill in. So easy. Make sure to attach any pieces that you want cut together. This image looked like it was, but it was actually just grouped, not attached. So select all the layers and click attach. After all my editing, these are the tote bags I came up with. These projects will be public in Design Space, and I will link to them below so you can customize your own. Obviously, I can't share the handprints, not that you'd want to use my handprints anyway, so you won't see those when you go to customize the project, but all the other elements will be there for you to use. When you're ready to cut your project, click Make, choose On Matte for any material, confirm. Both infusible ink and iron-on vinyl should be mirrored, so click Mirror on all the mats, and you can adjust the positioning of anything here if needed. Then click Continue. Set your base material to infusible ink or iron-on vinyl, whatever you're using. If all mats in your project are the same material, you can click the box next to Remember Material Settings so you don't have to keep choosing the material settings each time. Load your cutting mat with your material. Make sure your hands are clean before handling infusible ink transfer sheets, since oils and lotions can affect the transfer quality. With infusible ink, you want to load it on the mat so the ink is face up. I highly recommend a brayer tool here so you can minimize how much you're touching the ink. Load your mat into your machine, double check one more time that you've selected Mirror for your project, and follow the Design Space prompts to cut the material. Unload when finished. Then I like to flip the mat over and remove the mat away from the material, keeping the material flat against the table so I don't crease it or curl it. When cutting iron-on vinyl, remember to mirror also and load the vinyl with the matte side up, shiny carrier sheet side down. My brayer tool came in handy again since this mat is losing some of its stickiness. Before weeding your infusible ink, cut around the image to remove any excess material you might want to save for later, but perhaps don't cut as close as I did because the more adhesive liner that you have exposed, the better your design will adhere to the tote bag, which will help prevent your design from shifting. A 1/2 inch border or so will be good. Infusible ink weeds a little differently than iron-on vinyl, and it's usually easiest to just use your fingers. Crack or fold the material away from the edge, and remove that outer border first, then any interior pieces. Go slowly so you don't tear into your design, but it's okay if those scrap pieces tear, it's kind of hard to avoid that. If you're having a hard time seeing where your cut lines are, definitely utilize your bright pad. It was helpful for seeing where to weed out the tiny pieces on these little handprints. Weed any iron-on vinyl pieces as well. You will definitely need a weeding tool for that. I am not as fast at weeding as this video may lead you to believe, but I don't mind. I'm one of those people who actually enjoys weeding vinyl. I think it's therapeutic. Weeding in my yard? Different story. All right, now we're ready to make the tote bags. First, I want to give you 3 big tips for success when making infusible ink tote bags. First, use a mat in between the tote bag and push it underneath the bag's edge seam for a solid flat surface to press on. Second, use lots, and I mean lots, of heat-resistant tape to avoid shifting and ghosting. And third, press in sections. For the most part, it's okay to overlap previously pressed areas, unlike iron-on vinyl where you have to be more careful about overheating. Before pressing, make sure you're working in a well-ventilated space. Infusible ink gets kind of stinky. For infusible ink, set your easy press to 385 degrees for 40 seconds. While that's heating, lay your tote bag on your largest pressing mat. Put a smaller pressing mat inside the tote bag and white cardstock between the mat and the bag. This is to protect your mat if there's any bleed through from the infusible ink. Before you apply your design, you want to press out any wrinkles or moisture. Lay a sheet of butcher paper over the tote bag and press with your easy press for about 15 seconds. Next, lint roll the bag to remove any fuzzies or anything that could interfere with your transfer. Position your infusible ink design on the tote bag, ink side down. Your image should not look mirrored now, it should look correct. You can use a ruler to measure to make sure your design is straight and centered, or just eye it like I'm doing here. When you're positioning pieces, make sure none of the carrier sheets get under the infusible ink parts. You want to make sure that the ink is always right up against the tote bag. Once positioned, use a bunch of heat-resistant tape all around the edges of your designs. And I could have used even more than this because I still had a little shifting as I pressed. Lay a sheet of butcher paper over the infusible ink pieces to protect your easy press as well as your tote bag. And press in sections, again at 385 degrees for 40 seconds in each spot. Lift the easy press up slowly to avoid that shifting and ghosting of your design as much as possible. In between presses, adjust the mat and cardstock inside the bag, making sure it's always underneath where you're pressing. Leave all the carrier sheets on until all pieces are pressed. When you're finished pressing everything, you can do a warm peel and remove the transfer sheets. Be careful not to burn your fingers as it will be very hot initially. And of course, because I'm videoing this, my transfer did not go perfectly. You can see where I missed the top of the G, but that's okay because now I can show you how to fix that. I don't want to put the entire transfer sheet back on because if the positioning isn't quite right, then I'll get some ghosting. So I just cut off part of the G, matched it up to the edge, and taped it on. Butcher paper over the top again. Then I used my Easy Press Mini, heated to the highest setting, and pressed that area until the ink had transferred, up to 75 seconds, but I didn't need quite that long. Aw, I love these little baby handprints. In the words of my son,
It looks so cute.
this tote bag was the only one where I had a slight issue where I overlapped where I was pressing and it left a line in the middle of this handprint. You can see it's shaped like the edge of my Easy Press. Not a huge deal. I mean, the perfectionist in me was super annoyed, but she'll live. To avoid that next time, I might have tried using my 12x10 Easy Press instead, or just positioning the Easy Press so it completely covers each handprint, at least on the first time they get pressed. I don't know, I might have to play with my technique more, but either way, the non-perfectionist part of me is still happy with this transfer. If your tote bag also has iron-on vinyl, always press that after the infusible ink. Position your iron-on pieces on the tote bag. You can put them in between ink designs or overlap the ink like this. Lay a piece of butcher paper over the top. Then press for 30 seconds at 315 degrees or the medium setting for the Easy Press Mini. Remove the liner when cool. And you are all done. I love how these tote bags turned out. It's such a great keepsake gift with those handprints, and I know these moms and grandmas are going to love them. Oh, and if you're wondering why the handprints on this tote bag are off-center, it's because I'm saving room for the next grandbaby's handprint. My sister-in-law is due soon, so I wanted to leave a spot. I hope you include your Cricut in your own Mother's Day celebration because the sky is the limit with what you can create. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.